example 5 gives us a revenue problem. And a revenue in this particular problem represents the gross amount or the total amount of money that's been brought in during a business venture. The gross amount is the amount without removal of any of your expenses. So it's the total amount of money you brought in, and this is before you subtract out all of the expenses that would have to do with your business venture. So it says the revenue in millions of dollars for a company from 2003 to 2010 can be given by this function. And it notes that the domain of the function is between 3 and 10. And it gives us a key of how to interpret that. When t equals 3, it corresponds to 2003. So before we do anything else with it, let's take a look at this function. It's even, n equals 4. So it's an even function. Or it has an even degree, I should say. And a sub n is less than 0. So whatever this function is doing in the middle, we know it's going towards negative infinity in the y direction, to the left and to the right. It says use a graphing calculator to estimate the year the revenue was maximum and the year the revenue was minimum, and it gives us a window to try out. So let's go to y equals and enter our function as it's written. And then I'm going to do zoom 6 rather than hit graph, just because I haven't changed it from the last time I used my calculator for a graphing problem. And zoom 6, if you remember, takes it back to that negative 10. And when I hit enter, this is what comes up. A function just zooming off to the right. So let me now go into window and try out this suggested window box. 0 to 12 for our x minimum and x maximum, and then negative 8 to 12 for our y minimum and y maximum. Hit graph, and that's still not exactly what I was expecting here. We have the end behavior showing up, but let me do actually a zoom out, number 3, and hit enter. There's a nice view of our function right there. So this window helped me see the end behavior, but I had to zoom out further to see this guy turning left and right. I'm going to hit trace. Now notice my y is 18 here. I'm going to trace up to this highest point. It looks like it's around 30. So I'm going to go into my window, and I'm going to set my y max at 30 and my y minimum at negative 5, or maybe negative 8, just to get a view of this guy. There we are. Now, right here, this is when our revenue is 0. We're not bringing in any money. And negative revenue does not make sense because we have not yet subtracted out any of the expenses. So we are just looking at this portion of the graph, and we're going to find the year the revenue was a maximum and the year the revenue was a minimum. Right, so we have a value here that's a local maximum, and then we have a value here which is the most amount or the largest amount of revenue that you brought in or the business brought in. So I'm going to hit second, and then I'm going to do calculate, and I'm going to choose, I'm going to start with my maximums, number 4. So I'm going to get this little maximum and hit enter, and hit enter, and enter one more time. And I have a maximum, let me just record this value, of 4.105 and 21.869. Now I'm going to go get the other maximum, second trace maximum. I need to cursor over, hit enter, enter, and then my guess. And I have x is 9.018 and 29 on the y, 0.251. Okay, the minimum second trace, number 3. Minimum is right here in this dip, and it happens at 6.007, and the Y value is 18.808. Okay, so to get all of this in perspective, the X values of 4, 6, and 9 are within our allowable domain. So since they're within our allowable domain, I'm just going to draw a line through this one. I'm not going to mark it out completely because I'm going to need it for the next little bit of this problem. But I'm going to focus on this one. The year that the revenue was a maximum was 2009. And then the year the revenue was a minimum was 2006, as terms of this moving around. Now, if we wanted to have the years that our revenue was 0, that would happen at these intersections right here. But I'm interpreting the problem in this manner. You could, if you wanted to, get deep into what's happening in 2003, what's happening in 2010. And if you wanted to, we could do that. Let's do trace. X equals 6 right there. 2003 is right there. If you wanted to get it exactly, you could go to table, or you could just tap 3 on your keyboard, and your calculator interprets that as plugging in a 3 into your function, and you get 15.705. So in 3, we have 15.702. And then the other end of this is at 10, so I can hit trace and then plug in a 10, and it's at 22.6. So technically you could say the minimum happened right here at that endpoint. But in the context of this, the minimum happened in 2006. All right, so we define the periods of increasing and decreasing revenue. Let me just kind of mark this out. Okay, so it increases from 2003 to this little blip, 2004. So it increases from 3 to 4. And then it decreases to 2006. And then it increases again to this one, 2009. So it increases from 6 to 9. And then it decreases between 4 and 6 and 9 and 10.